that's worth a look.
Hey, what's up everyone? Darkwing Dad. Happy summer. Summer is finally here. The sun is shining. The crowns are shining too, I guess. I don't know. If you haven't guessed, today's video is going to be based off of the Loki series, the new crown that was revealed last week, the Lady Loki, or the variant Loki, that we've seen a short glimpse of. Once I did the first set of Loki crowns or horns, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people are like, hey man, are you going to do the female version? And the answer is yes. So that's what this video is going to focus on today. This video is going to be a little bit different. I did the crown a little bit different. I printed it at a higher layer height, and this video is really going to focus on the build capabilities of Bondo filler primer. I know a lot of people ask me about it. Where do I get it? How good is it actually? Is it that much better than Rust-Oleum? The answer is yes, and this video is going to showcase it for you. I also go over some more rub and buff techniques. I explain that a little bit more and thoroughly. I know last video just kind of touched on it, but overall I want to try to give you guys good content, so I think I nailed it in this video as well. Show you guys a quick glimpse here. Here is the crown. I'll go over everything in the video, how I got it to look like that, and then we'll wrap everything up in the end, so check this out. Alright, so here we have the three components of the Lady Loki crown. So obviously we have the main crown. I printed this at 103% because 100 seemed a little small. We have the horn that goes on the right, and then the broken horn that goes on the left. These will get glued in place here. They don't really like stay. Yep, dropped it, that's okay. But what I'm gonna do is, this printed pretty smooth. I mean, there's some minor imperfections here. I printed it at a 0.16. It's just gonna need some basic sanding. So I'm gonna sand all this down with 120 and 180. And then I think for the most part, I'm just gonna be able to do filler primer, because these lines here are all raised. So I should be able to sand them down. I'll need to just kind of clean up all these edges here. So I'm gonna go through and give them a quick sand. This horn, same thing happened from before. It just, because I printed it like this, the support created a little something here, but I'm just gonna sand this all down, fill it in with plastic metal, and then that other piece that fell on the ground isn't gonna really need much sanding at all. I'll kind of show you here. So yeah, this piece printed really good. So again, just a basic sand, and then filler primer. This will need a little bit of body filler via plastic metal, but yeah, just gonna go through, get all this sanding, and kind of show you guys how it looks. All right, so here's just a quick look at the crown, and this is after sanding it by hand with 120 grit followed by 180 grit. We were able to start knocking those lines down pretty good. Again, we want to utilize the filler. We want the filler to build up and fill in all those dips and crevices and PLA lines, but the hand sanding didn't take too long. It was maybe 20 minutes. Got a good jump start, started knocking all that stuff down. The little horns weren't too bad. I was able to kind of just wrap the sandpaper around and just kind of almost corkscrew type sand. So those were actually really quick. Here was the horn after doing plastic metal, sanding that with 120, and then putting some glazing putty on. And I actually sanded the glazing putty with 220. But after these were all prepped, we were ready for our filler primer. All right, so here is a look at the crown. And I'm kind of using this light here so you can see. This is, you know, no glazing putty. This is literally just a fine height print and just a decent round of sanding. And we know we're going to have some PLA lines and things like that. The reason why I did not use any glazing putty on this particular piece is because this has got a little bit more definition and eccentricity to it than the original Loki crown. The original Loki crown is basically just flat, where this has, you know, all this definition in here. So I wanted to touch just a little bit on the sanding. The horns, those will all work out fine, but in here we've got just a little bit more complex areas. So what I recommend doing with the Bondo filler primer, and and really with any filler primer, is you don't, I'll repeat myself video after video, whatever you sand this with initially. So this was sanded with, I did 120, 180, and then a little bit of 220 in some of those areas. Realistically, you should only start with the last sandpaper you ended with, so 220. But on this, I already know that I was able to get a lot of it really smooth, and I know if I go with 220, I'm probably just gonna take a lot of the filler primer off, which you don't wanna take it all off. You want it to, you know, to fill in. So really what we wanna do is we wanna go just a smidge above what we ended with, in this case anyway. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a small piece and then I'm gonna get a bigger piece. For these flat areas, we just want something flat and spongy. So I use these little Gator, it's like a Gator grip sander. Get them at Walmart, Lowe's, places like that. But all we wanna do here is just kind of support the piece. But basically that's all we wanna do. We don't need anything super, super heavy. We don't need 80 grit or 120 or any of that. With a flat piece and some mild pressure, we'll start filling in all of those PLA lines. Start smoothing it all out here. And then when we do the next coats and repeat this, it'll fill it all in. So we can see that we're already starting to knock that down and smooth that out. So really what I'm gonna do here is go over this whole piece with as much of the flat area as I can, and then when I get to these areas, I'm literally just gonna take some and just take the curvature of my finger and just kind of go through everything. Because we don't want anything big like this, because then we risk rounding all of these sharp areas off. So here it's gonna get really, really tricky to try to knock all that down, but I'm gonna do a quick sand here and then show you how it looks and show you how well just one application of Bondo filler primer actually filled all this in. Good for now. You can see here that we have knocked down a ton of the PLA lines. We will probably only have to do this once, maybe twice, just because I'm a little bit OCD, but you definitely could put glazing putty on anything and it would speed up the process, but this is just to show you how effective that, you know, with a print done at a finer layer height, something like 0.12, 0.16, or even 0.2 with a calibrated printer. You don't have to do quite as much sanding. You know, 2 good coats of Bondo filler primer, some 320 sanding. What we're gonna do now is put 3 layers on, a little bit thicker, not overdoing it though, and then basically repeat this process, and hopefully we'll be at the point where we can let this thing sit and then start doing some rub and buff. But we're gonna put 2 to 3 coats on it, and I'll lean towards 3 as long as I can get it on there without any runs or anything. And then what we're gonna do is actually sand this with 400, again, changing our grit to allow the fillers in the primer to build up, and see how it looks, and we'll go from there. All right, so here is the crown, and this is after repeating that process a second time. So obviously I sanded it, did filler primer, sanded it with 320. I re-primered it again, sanded it again, and now re-primered it, and this is where we're at. So right now we just have some very, very minor line showing here. So what we're gonna do is now sand this with 400, primer it one last time, and it will be ready to go. This is probably the worst of it right here, but this will all get knocked down. With the 400, I'll show you, you can really, it really makes these show, but you can get just a little bit more aggressive with it just to knock these down. So really right here is the only area we've got. This is all pretty smooth up here. This all came out really well. The horns here look pretty good. And this horn as well looks pretty darn good. Ultimately, it's like 3 rounds of sanding is really all it is. It really doesn't take that long either. That initial sanding takes the longest, but these rounds of sanding, this round of sanding with 400 here, it's literally probably gonna take me about 10 minutes. It's super quick, it's super fast. I'll actually do a time lapse on it here so you can see. But this is gonna be my last stage of sanding here, and we're gonna knock this out real quick and show you what it looks like. But you can see here how we've got some very minor marks, some PLA lines. What you do is just take this, knocks it right down. Now you can see we took a little bit on the edge. That's why we're going to do a final repriming. But that's really all you have to do with 400. It's super nice. Like I said, this Bondo filler primer, it just sands off really easy. You don't need to use a super aggressive sandpaper. You want this filler primer to build up, and I know I say that in a lot of my videos, but when you allow this filler primer to build up, it will fill in just so many imperfections. And then the combination of using a light sandpaper like a 400 or a 320 is just going to give you a super smooth finish. I mean, and you don't need to go higher than that. I see all kinds of people that are like, oh, I wet sanded the primer. You don't need to do that. Like 400, 600 at the very most is all you really need. This is super smooth. It's going to be absolutely perfect. That's all you have to do. So I'm just going to go through and sand the rest of this crown here and get it ready for its final coat. So you might be asking yourself, why shouldn't I wet sand PLA or filler primer or glazing putty? Well, the reason is all 3 of those are very porous and they will hold the moisture. If you don't allow that moisture to properly evaporate, you're going to have adhesion issues. You're going to have problems with putting on additional layers of putty or filler primer, and realistically paint. Paint has heavier solvents and it's much more affected by water that's not fully evaporated. So always avoid wet sanding anything other than clear coat. All right, so here is the crown, and it is pretty much ready for rub and buff. And you can see that we pretty much got rid of majority, if not all, of the PLA lines. I'm gonna go through. There is a little blob right there. You can see that little dot of primer, and there's also just this little corner here, but I'm gonna hit these with 600. That's gonna smooth that right out, and it's perfectly okay to do that. There's enough primer on here that when you hit it with a light sandpaper, it'll smooth out. So I'm just gonna go through, and there's some light lines right there, and then a little bit there. There's that dot there, and then this corner here. I'm gonna knock that down with 600, wipe it down, and we'll be ready for rub and buff. It's like the raptor claw. But this thing came out pretty much perfect. There's really nothing I need to do with that. There's a little, maybe a little sanding right there. Yeah, right there. You can see that little faint line. So under there, I'll hit that. This thing came out really good too. So I'll just do one final check here. Probably spend about 5 minutes just kind of smoothing this stuff out here the last little bit. And then we'll go inside and do some rubbing and buffing. All right, so now we are ready to do the rub and buff with the crown here that we have. The Lady Loki crown. Actually stuck with 400. I was going to do 600, but I don't want to make it too smooth. You never want to sand it at such a high grit that it becomes almost too smooth, because it could potentially create a barrier that is so smooth that it rejects what you're putting on, almost like how clear coat is smooth on cars. So you don't want it that smooth. You want a little something for this stuff to grab onto. If it does get a little bit smoother though, it's okay, because this is actually just a wax. So, you know, you can paint these. It's not really recommended to put clear coat on and then do the rub and buff. You can paint it, which is going to be more of a like a single stage. It's going to be a combination of pigmented color and clear. That's okay, it'll grab onto that, but I have seen you know, some things on the forums where people clear coat it and then they try rub and buff and they have a lot of issues. You don't need that, okay? Rub and buff, when you put it on, it will basically adhere and seal. So not only would I not need to put clear coat on before, I would not have to put it on after. With an adequate and proper application, you will not need to put any sealer or any sort of clear on there. So I used gold leaf in the Loki crown video. For Lady Loki, we are going to be using antique gold. Again, I just want to switch things up. I don't like ever doing the same thing in any of my two videos. Kind of blend it in. Get it looking something like that. And then we are going to do circular motions on the crown. Now I'm going to do just like I did in the last video. And I'm going to start with the inside here just to see how it looks, to make sure this is the right color that we want. So that's a pretty cool color, and we're going to stick with that. So I'm just going to apply it on the inside here, just so our crown is one color. On the first, I guess, priming application when you do this, which is what this is, but you will not need to go crazy with putting this stuff on. So just a dab is really all we need, and then we want to blend it in to the towel and then just kind of work it in. I like doing circular motions here just to buff it in, blend it in. This is going to definitely look pretty cool. It's going to look very antique-ish almost. Very cool color. Now we're going to go to the outside here. So get a little bit on there, and we're just going to kind of work it in here. Stuff spreads a really long way. I didn't really touch on that much in the other video, but I mean, this was just basically one dab, and you can see it's covering the entire crown. So it goes a very, very long way. And you'll notice once it starts to dry out, you'll kind of see a pattern of what you're doing. When you use this product, it is not meant to be laid completely. It's never going to look fully flat. It's meant to give you that aged, weathered, you know, antique-like look. So what I like to do is kind of, I put this on here and then I let it sit, and then I'll go back with a fresh towel and kind of redo it, because I can move this all around. You'll notice that the pattern kind of changes. But we don't want to do that too much, because what we'll start doing is we'll start actually stripping the gold off, so you can see how it's really dark here. So we'll have to go back over and apply that. But it's almost the look that I'm going for, so we're going to let this sit here for a minute. Some people do too is they will actually apply it by hand, which you can do. I think it takes longer. I mean, you can kind of see it doesn't really stick all that well. So I prefer just to put it on the towel. You can kind of see, like, it's just not really the best thing. I don't really like doing it like that, so I prefer, some people like applying it by hand. I like sticking with my towel method. I think it works pretty good. do one more round here on the horns. And what I'll do is I'll actually glue them in place and do one more touch up here, because these horns are definitely a little bit difficult. Actually came out really nice. Looks really good. So I'll just get the top of it. Actually, the top of it looks really good, how it's kind of weathered like that. I might just leave that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to get some fresh gloves here, but let these sit for a minute. I'm going to glue these horns in place, and then we'll take a look at the helmet. Alright, so we got the horns glued in place, and all I used was my DAP Rapid Fuse. Better than super glue, because you don't get that like white staining after it dries, and I really didn't need a lot, and this is a gel, not a liquid. I tried hot glue, it just would not work, so I just said, okay, we're gonna go to the more serious stuff, and it worked great. So as you can see, the crown looks pretty awesome. Now what I'm gonna do is where I was touching it, where it's got just a little bit of I guess smudginess, so you could say. So we just take a little bit, rub it into the towel here, and just try to blend it in. So what can happen with rub and buff is when you kind of get towards the end of your towel or towards the end of your rubbing and buffing, is it kind of starts to get a little bit smudgy, and you'll notice some dark areas and almost a pattern in how you're wiping. Just let the crown or the piece sit for about 15 to 20 minutes. Let it completely dry. Wipe it down with a dry towel, and then get a fresh towel and a fresh set of gloves, and just go through and just do a very light massaging rub and buff with just a little bit of rub and buff solution. Just very light. You don't want to put too much pressure. Your idea is to kind of reactivate the rub and buff, and then just kind of level it and let it dry. It's basically what I did with the whole crown. I went through all the edges, basically any place where there's maybe too much agitation or too much force introduced by the rubbing and buffing, and that will happen. But I just went through and just kind of reblended everything in. It smoothed everything out, made it nice and uniform, and made the piece look great. So I highly recommend that if you're struggling, if you're fighting with your piece, if no matter what you do, you rub it and you're smudging it, just get a brand new towel, get a brand new set of gloves, let the piece sit for about 15-20 minutes, and go at it, and just go very light, just gently massage it in, and your piece will come out looking awesome. That final blending really it really just kind of levels everything out, you know, so I really recommend doing that when you're doing the rub and buff. If you're getting frustrated and you're seeing that it's, you know, maybe it's leaving patterns, or you're putting it on and it's just not going even, do a second coat, you know, let it sit. Just take a little bit on your towel back in, and just kind of blend everything in, and it'll all kind of even itself out. It's definitely a patience game, but you can see how just doing that, how you can really get it level. You just got to be kind of quick on the trigger, because like I said, it is in essence reactivating it. So if you rub too much, you can actually take it off. It's not hard to pick up. You'll messing around with it, you'll kind of see what you can and can't do. And like I said, it's really just it's a very unique product. So many different applications, so versatile. But all I'm doing here is just doing some minor touch-ups. And like I said, I just kind of let this sit for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'll just go through and just kind of wipe it down one last time, just to be safe, with a dry towel. You don't want to do that when you first put it on, because you could potentially risk stripping it off. You want to let it sit for a little bit, and then just buff it, and then that way you get all the residuals off, and this the right way. You don't need any sort of sealer or anything. It just worked in and properly applied, it will self-seal itself. That is pretty much it. I'm going to let this thing sit, give it one more final wipe down, and leave you guys with my final thoughts and some final pictures. So that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. Hopefully it answered some questions. Like I said, I tried to explain everything pretty thoroughly in there, not too crazy, but just my whole process and how I'm able to get you know, prints looking like this. And again, this is no glazing putty, this is no body filler, this is no wood putty. Not that you should be using that anyways. This is just all just a nice crisp fine layer height, some sanding, a couple layers of filler primer, and then some good old rub and buff. So this crown really came out awesome. This is actually going to be going to a friend of mine. She is a big Loki fan. She actually freaked out when she seen the first set of horns, and why do I keep calling them horns? She actually freaked out when she seen the first crown that I made, and then I was like, I'll do the lady one for her. So I'll probably make a set like this for myself. I'll probably also do some variants of this horn and do it just in like in a silk gold or something like that, just to see how it was. But like I said, real cool print. I had fun doing it. I love this rub and buff. I'm going to be doing a lot more projects with it. It just gives that nice, you know, weathered, aged, antique look. And like I said in the video, this was antique gold, a little bit different than the Loki one. This is more of a dull finish or a more mild finish. I still think it turned out awesome, and overall, really happy with this project. I know the new owner is going to be thrilled with it as well. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you are a subscriber to the channel, thank you so much. I think this is the week that we're finally going to get to 1,000. I think we're like 10 away or something. So once 1K hits, I'm going to do an announcement video for some of the giveaways that we're going to be having. And as this channel continues to grow, we will only do more. If you're not a subscriber to the channel and you enjoy all things 3D printing, DIY projects, Marvel, Star Wars, Disney, hearing my kids scream, go ahead and click that subscribe button because we have a lot more fun videos ahead. But if you like any of those things, go ahead and click that subscribe button. If you have a question on anything in the video that I didn't explain properly, go ahead and leave me a comment. That's it for today's video, guys. Like I said, happy summer. Go out, enjoy that weather. If you're a dad like me, enjoy your time with your kids with the summer off. They don't stay kids forever. I've got all three here with me now. Luckily, they were able to stay quiet while I was doing this. That's kind of like winning the lottery. But have a happy summer. Have a safe 4th of July if I don't see from you. Like I said, leave me a comment on this video. And for now, enjoy these last pics of the crown and let me know what you guys think. And until next time, we'll see you later.